So this is the OERC Seminar series, so Otago Energy Research Centre. We're a network of researchers focused on energy from right across the university. So today we're lucky to have Malcolm, who's at the tail end of his PhD, has been involved in OERC for quite a while, giving presentations at our end of year symposium for kind of like the last 3 years. Yeah, and won a few prizes with them as well. So very, very pleased to have Malcolm present to us here on this work on tidal energy.
Cool. So I'm Malcolm, and as was said, I'm on the tail end of my PhD, hopefully handing that in as soon as possible. I'm part of the Ocean Physics Group, which is a subsidiary of the Marine Science Department, and I'm part of the Tidal Energy Group inside that group, and we're funded by a Master's Fund at the moment. So a quick word on our group. We focus on resource assessment modelling of very large turbine arrays, so hundreds of turbines, potentially thousands. And the reason we're focusing on this is that if tidal energy is going to make a significant contribution to global energy supply, then we need to generate hundreds of megawatts, if not gigawatts of power. So arrays this big actually change the tidal resource. So 100 megawatt turbines won't necessarily equal 100 megawatts of output. Sometimes it's higher, sometimes it's lower. That's because you've got the turbines can slow the flow through the whole channel. Then you can also get effects within the turbines, so flow bypassing 2 turbines is fast, and you can catch that downstream and get more power out of that. So there's all sorts of macro scale and micro scale feedback loops and effects, and it makes it quite a complicated and interesting problem. So me, I'm specifically looking at channel constrictions and how channel shape changes the amount of power in a channel, so the energy budget, how we can build turbine arrays in constricted channels with respect to the geometry, and how, like, looking at compromises, like should we put turbines in the fast-flowing constricted flow, because we'll have to build them stronger, they'll cost more, or should we build weaker, cheaper turbines and put them outside of this flow? And I look at an impact on the channel dynamics, which is the first indicator of how these things will affect their environment. So I'm going to start off with going briefly over how the tides work. So some of you may know how already, some of you might think you know, and some of you might know nothing. So we'll quickly summarize that, and then we'll look at how we can take the power out of them. And then we'll focus on tidal streams, which is where a lot of the industry is heading, and that's where our group's doing most of our work. We'll look at the world industry, where that is, and then specifically at my trip to the Bay of Fundy, which I did recently. So I was lucky to get the Almond Pool Scholarship last year. So I was working from Stanford University with the group we collaborate with. And then from there, I got an OERC travel grant and flew across to the Bay of Fundy for a week and looked at the tidal energy industry there. So some big moments in tidal history, starting in the 2nd century. Pliny the Elder, who now is a craft beer, discovered that the lunar day is longer than the solar day. So it takes longer for the moon to appear in the same place in the sky than it does the sun. Advancing on in 1616, Galileo correctly attributed the tides to celestial powers, but incorrectly thought it was to do with the Earth's revolution around the sun. Isaac Newton came along, who just mastered gravity, and he correctly attributed it to the gravity of the sun and the moon, but explained it only for a planet totally covered in water. And our planet is not yet covered in water. So Laplace came along and produced the dynamic theory of the tides, where he accounted for bathymetry, Coriolis force, and a bunch of other stuff. And then about a 250-year gap before I came along and started my PhD, which will surely be another groundbreaking work. So we'll start with the equilibrium theory of tides. Got a moon-Earth system, and they rotate around a center of mass about 1500 K into the Earth. So gravity from the moon pulls water towards it, and then the Earth's motion around the center of mass creates a bulge on the other side. So you've got a bulge of water facing the moon and a bulge of water on the opposite side. Then the Earth doesn't start, the Earth does rotate underneath these bulges. So our reference point, which is a flagged island, rotates around and experiences 2 high tides and 2 low tides, which are the same size if it's in the plane of the moon. If it's not in the plane of the moon, we get 2 high tides and 2 low tides, but they're different sizes depending on where exactly we are and where the moon is. And then the sun plays another factor into it to complicate things. So the sun is massive, but it's actually really far away. So the solar tide's only got 40% of the lunar tide. And the sun's responsible really for the spring tides and the neap tides. So in the spring tide, the solar tide and the lunar tide work together. That's when we experience the greatest difference between high tide and low tide. And then when they're at 90 degrees, we see the neap tide, which is where we see the smallest difference in tidal range. But we don't see 2 bulges of water on the Earth. And that's because tides actually behave like waves, Kelvin waves to be specific. And this is how they work. So we have a tidal crest heading into a basin. Then if we're in the northern hemisphere, the Coriolis force tends that wave to the right-hand side. It then reflects off the eastern boundary and bounces to the northern boundary and then bounces to the west. And you end up with this tide circulating the central point, which is called an amphidromic point or a tidal node. And that just oscillates around and around. So the further we get away from that point, the higher the tidal range. And the closer we get, well, at the amphidromic point, there's no difference in tide. And there are many amphidromic points in the world. Here they are. So you can see a very high tidal range in Western Europe and the UK, around the Arctic, west side of Central America, British Columbia, East Coast Africa, Northwest Australia, and a bit around New Zealand. So now we know how they work. How can we get power out of them? There's 2 main approaches. One is the constrained approach, and that basically involves containing the tide and then letting it, by building a wall, and then letting it through the tide, letting it through a gate where it spins a turbine. So we can do that with a tidal barrage, which is effectively a hydro dam. We let the water build up on one side, and then we push it all through, it spins a turbine and generates power. More recently, we've seen these tidal lagoons. They got a bit of press a few years ago. That works on the same principle, but instead of blocking off the channel, we're fencing off a region. And again, we let the tide accumulate and then let it all through, and it spins turbines. So there's some, especially with the barrage, there's some environmental issues that go along with that. Silt builds up on one side, and you have to dredge the channel or let it build up. And the animals that previously lived there are now covered in silt, so they can't survive. So the lagoon is sort of a way around that, and that's getting a lot of backing from the likes of Greenpeace, etc., who see it as a powerful tool for combating climate change. Then we have the unconstrained approach, which has the least effect on the environment. The trouble with that is that flow can go through the turbines, but the flow actually likes to go around them. But we can design arrays to force flows through turbines to maximize power. So barrages, they require a big tidal range. There are 5 that I know of. 2 big ones are in France and South Korea. Lagoons is the top one, and Seawell Lake is the bottom. Then the 2 small ones in Russia and China, I don't really know much about. Annapolis Royal is in Nova Scotia, so I saw that. That's had issues. 2 humpback whales had actually gotten into the closed off area in that area before. And one found his way out and the other didn't, unfortunately. And Seawell Lake in South Korea is interesting because the tidal generation there was an afterthought. So they fenced off this area there for flood mitigation and to supply clean water to agriculture. But what happened was the water became polluted. And so they realized they're going to have to flush it out. So they put a turbine in. Seawell Lake only generates power one way though, because when they want to flush it out, so they turn the turbine off when the tide's going out, and they let the turbine spin when the tide's coming in. 2 more barrages had been planned in South Korea, but they're both stagnated. That Incheon one is huge, both halted or delayed for environmental reasons, I think. Then lagoons. The UK is really backing these things. 10 lagoons by 2030, which will generate 10% of their domestic power. So Swansea's the pilot project, which is the artist's impression down there. That's equivalent to a Roxborough Dam. So that's a $2.3 billion project. For a bit of relative cost, Project Hayes was forecast to be $2 billion, and that was going to generate twice the amount of power of the lagoon. Then Cardiff's the next one on the plan, which is massive. Newport's pretty big. In total, they're going to generate 12 gigs of power potentially from these lagoons, provided Swansea goes to plan. So tidal streams are what our group's mostly interested in. I'm going to put a little bit of maths in here, but it's not going to get too dense, I promise. So if you've got two bodies of water connected by a channel, each body of water has a different tidal range and tidal pattern. So water can flow through that channel between the high tide region to the low tide region, because the high tide water's got a whole lot of water stacked on top of it. It's got a higher hydrostatic pressure, and you've got a pressure gradient force which can pull water through the channel, and we can put turbines in the channel and generate power. So water body 1 has a sine wave, water body 2 has another sine wave, and then the driving force is the difference in elevation, and that's another sine wave. So blue minus green or green minus blue, I can't remember which way I did it, generates the red wave. So if these two basins are 30 degrees out of phase, we get a reasonable driving force. But what's more exciting is if we have something closer to 180 degrees, and then your driving force is massive. And I bring this up because that's exactly what happens in the Cook Strait. So the Cook Strait has one of those anthrodromic points right in the middle of it, and the tide propagates around New Zealand like a Kelvin wave. And when it's low tide on the west, it's high tide on the east, and vice versa. That Cook Strait is so powerful, it is the most powerful site in the world, followed by Minas Passage, which is where I went, and Pentland Firth in Scotland. So these figures, 14 gigawatts and 7 and 4, there are like theoretical upper limits. So we're not going to generate all the power that we can from these sites. If we were to do it, we need to build a bridge of turbines, totally blocking the channel. That's going to cost a lot of money and it's going to have environmental consequences. But we could potentially generate 1 or 2 gigawatts from Cook Strait, 1 or 2 from Minas Passage, depending. And we do this by putting these turbines in the water. So a lot of turbine designs have existed. Industry is slowly converging to a few similar designs. These 3 here are the only designs that supply power to grids at a significant scale. So that one on the left is the one that's been put in Nova Scotia, one on the right is in the UK, and the middle one is in the UK too. The one in the middle is possibly going to form a small array, about 4 or 5 turbines soon. And these are slightly different from wind turbines. Wind turbines have an active yaw, which means they have a motor in the turbine which rotates the turbine to face the oncoming wind. That's not really possible in the tidal world. Well, it is, but it's making something that's already expensive even more expensive. So we could use a passive yaw, which is like a wind vane. So the flow goes past it and orientates the turbine in the correct direction. Or a fixed axis, which just sits there, goes one way, then goes the other. So these have less movable parts. Big difference between tide and wind is that the tide is basically 100% predictable. You know which way it's going to go at what time. With that one that doesn't rotate at all, you do have to get the deployment angle totally spot on to maximize power output. So the world has been pretty busy actually in tidal energy. 161 projects that I found from a statistics website, and I think there's more because I know of 2 projects in New Zealand that have failed that are not on that list. So about half are still in early planning concept, 24 are underway, 28 are operational, 5 are barrages, there's a mistake on the slide, 24 have been decommissioned and 10 have failed. So the ones that have been decommissioned, quite often that's like there's a testing centre in the UK, and a company deploys a turbine, it works great, and they pull it out and decommission it. And that's what a decommissioning can mean. It can also mean the turbine was deployed and they pulled it out because it wasn't working how they wanted it to work. If we look at where these are, they're mostly in the UK. Canada's got a bit of activity, USA, then other players, Norway, Netherlands, France, and Australia. So I was quite surprised to see Australia there because I haven't heard much about them. But they've deployed a few things around Tasmania. If you look at the power output of these projects, then you can see that a lot of these small players have really just put in like tiny turbines, sort of concept devices, really small scale. I've taken the Barrages and the Lagoons off this graph because if you put those in the UK, it's got 18 gigawatts of power and you can't see anything else. And yeah, Canada's really got some big projects on the cards. Then when you look at the status, you see most of that UK boom is still in the concept phase, but some of it's coming through and some of it's functional, and a lot of it's being decommissioned, again, because that's where the big test centre is. So Canada's really got their projects starting to move now, starting to build them. The Netherlands got a lot of successful projects. I think most of these are like dikes. So the Netherlands has been mucking around with dikes and stuff for ages, so a few of these probably fall into the tidal energy zone now. USA has got things on the cards, a few pilot projects, a few things have failed. The problem with the USA is that the tidal power is in the middle of nowhere, so there's no use for it nearby, and the current government unlikely to progress any further for a while. Then when you look at these by megawatts, you see that the successes have been small, and that what's to come is the big things coming in. The UK is now building decent-sized arrays and projects. And Canada, the successes in Canada and the progress in Canada has all been for small-scale stuff. And then India, another surprise for me, so I haven't really heard much from them. But they've got consent granted for a tidal array, so good on them. So I went to Nova Scotia, which is up here. This is the Bay of Fundy. So this has got the most powerful tides in the world. But if you're looking at this Kelvin wave map, you'll notice it's not dark red. And that's because the Nova Scotia system works on a slightly different mechanism. So water comes around this anthrodromic point, hits the east coast, and then swooshes up and into the bay. And it just so happens that the Bay of Fundy is the perfect length for a phenomenon called tidal resonance to occur. So as a tidal crest goes into the bay, it flows up, hits the end, and rebounds. And it just so happens that that journey takes 13 hours, and a tidal cycle is 12 hours and 50 minutes. So as that crest is coming back out, another crest comes and knocks it back in, and they build on each other. And similar to pushing somebody on a swing. So if you've got somebody on a swing, they're swinging, and you push them at the exact right time, they'll accumulate energy, and they'll start swinging faster and harder. And that's exactly what's happening in the Bay of Fundy. So they've got massive tides. Their average tidal range is 10 meters. Their average spring is 13, and their extreme is 16. So you can get these crazy changes. And I arrived in Nova Scotia in Halifax, visited Dalhousie University, and then visited these two areas. So the Minas Basin has got the Minas Passage, and that's where most of the power is. That's where the international interest is. That's where the 7 gigawatt potential is. But down here, you've got some smaller scale developments. So yeah, I visited Wolfville, University of Acadia, and then I visited the Minas Passage from both sides. The Force Centre there is like a scientific institute that just facilitates the development of tidal energy in the area. So they'll help industry deploy turbines, monitor turbines, and the likes, and they've got some deep sea cables running out so they can grid connect. And then, yeah, the Digby Peninsula, there's that Annapolis Royal Barrage, which had the humpback whale incidents. There's the Digby Gut, which seems to be pretty stagnant. There's a ferry service that runs in and out of there. I think that's causing a bit of discontent. And then you've got Petit Passage and Grand Passage, which are owned by, well, not owned, but the operation there is by a company called Fundy Tidal Inc. And they're like a small startup company. and the only small startup company I really know of in the tidal energy industry. Well, the one with the least funding, anyway. So to get to this area, you drive down the Digby Peninsula, and then you get a ferry across Petit Passage, drive down Long Island, and get another ferry here. And this ferry runs every half hour all through the night. So it must just be the most inefficient ferry service in the world, but that ferry is literally going back and forth with nobody on it all through the night. They're looking at deploying these turbines here, so they're ballasted to the ground and they float on the top, so you don't accidentally kayak over them or ride your boat over them. And they're owned by Fundy Tidal Inc., which has one staff member, Greg. That's the Fundy Tidal Inc. headquarters, which has a desk for Greg, a bed for Greg, and he can only get running water at high tide because he gets it from a well. So Greg's a bit of a cowboy. He's operating on a shoestring budget. Most of his work's done from his kayak, and he's dropped GoPros into the water. One's been eaten by a shark. And yeah, this is a really small project. It's 900 kilowatts, which is a third of a good wind turbine. Greg's been quite good at getting the community on board, and the community all want this project to go through. What's actually stopping the project now is local government has installed a wind turbine, and the grid capacity is 900 kilowatts, and this is a 900 kilowatt wind turbine. So this has really ruined the finances of it, because they can only operate their tidal turbines when there's no wind, which might not coincide with high tides. Yeah, Greg's most recent piece of work was he mapped out the currents with pumpkins. And I'm going to show you a short video of that, hopefully. He made it onto Discovery Channel. I can get this to play. No. 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 Oh, the mouse is not plugged in. That's why. There we go.
Now, a lot of the time on Daily Planet, we focus on very expensive cutting-edge science, and of course that stuff is awesome.
Yes, so is throwing a couple hundred pumpkins in the water and just seeing where they drift to. Today, we're trucking pumpkins straight into the Bay of Fundy. Greg Trouse is an engineer who's working on a better way to map the motion of the ocean for tidal power. Trying to figure out the best places to potentially put turbines. And he's doing it with pumpkins. So we're just picking up pumpkins here in Freeport at the School Street Market. Today we're doing something called the Drones and Drifters project, and in particular today the Great Pumpkin Race.
It's a great way to get the locals excited about the research.
We dropped off sign-up sheets at 3 local stores, and we're getting really good turnout so far. We've already collected 300 pumpkins. The plan from here is we're going to go pick up some more pumpkins and then go back down to the wharf and load up the boat, and hopefully she'll be ready to go.
To measure surface currents, researchers can use virtually anything that floats. They call them drifters.
One of the oldest, sort of simplest tools for measuring flow speeds is just to throw something in and have a stopwatch and time how long it takes to go from A to B. So we use GPS-based drifters quite a bit, which is chicken feed bag like this with our GPS in it, and can track it via VHF. We're able to put about 5 to 7 of those in the water at a time and track them effectively. But there's a limit to how many of these we can put in the ocean to cover without sort of littering the ocean with this kind of gear.
They're also easy to lose and pricey.
It's worth ballpark about $500.
If everything goes according to plan, the pumpkins could become their drifter of choice.
What we want to do is be able to throw a whole bunch of biodegradable drifters in that we don't necessarily have to recover.
They'll be racing a 3-kilometer stretch along a narrow body of water called the Grand Passage.
I think we better get to work here.
For the entrance, a $50 gift certificate to a local restaurant is at stake.
We're just having fun with this because there's going to be a bit of randomness, and we're just going to be throwing pumpkins into the ocean and start using our judgment to figure out which ones cross first.
So we're taking any bets here or what? I said a 9 shot.
It's far more than the 5 or 6 drifters they usually use. But more drifters in the water means more accurate data over a much larger area. Of course, they can't put GPS trackers on every pumpkin,
But that's where the drones come in.
I've got the drone hovering at about 234 feet, and I'm just gonna let the pumpkins strip down through here. So we have really good coverage across the tidal channel right here. And this will be a good test for whether or not we can accurately calculate the flow speeds.
To do that, you need steady, clear images of the pumpkins from high above.
I'm seeing a fishing boat and a whole bunch of pumpkins. I'm gonna set the camera to hover here for a minute.
The drone records images for later analysis, but the dream is to one day develop software that can pump out accurate speeds of every drifter, from the slowest to the fastest.
I believe it's number 38 in the lead right now, and 8 or 18, it's hard to say right now in a close second.
38's the winner.
There it is. There's the winner.
All right, let's go get third place.
38.
First place. Second place.
There it is. Third place.
Time to deliver the good news.
Hi, Elder. This is Greg Truss calling about the pumpkin race. Yeah, you won. Congratulations. It was great. The experiment went really well. No equipment loss. We got some really good data.
It looks like the Drones and Drifters project is moving in the right direction.
With modern technology and calculate A to B to C to D for multiple pumpkins at the same time.
It's a great sign for the future of tidal energy and for pumpkin racing.
We've got a few pumpkins left, and we've got some ideas in terms of how we want to tweak things and how we can make it better, and do a couple more experiments over the next few weeks, and hopefully continue on with this.
All right.
Yeah. So if we move up the bay, this is where all the big players are in the Minas Passage. So the Minas Passage, the current moves up the bay and it hits this point called Cape Split, which is like a horn sticking out. Because of that, the current curves around and you get a concentrated inflow current on one side. And then below it, you've got a whole lot of shearing and vortices and turbulence and horrible stuff. So you want to put the turbines really on that side there. But as the tide comes out again, it's got this nice gentle bend that it goes around. So you've got a slower speed on the way out to actually get an asymmetric power generation. So this is from Cape Split, which is that point sticking out. You can see all the shearing going on there. And the tidal energy zone is there. It's extremely windy at this point, and people have been blown off before. You need to be pretty careful. From the other side, Cape Split in the background. It's rock, so they've got to navigate. And then the tidal energy zone's there. So they've got seven cables running out. And these things are pretty serious. They're 25 centimeters diameter. That outer layer is just armoring. So that's polyethylene and then steel protecting it. And you've got three-phase power and you've got a few information transmitters, etc. The big player in the Minas Basin is Open Hydro, who has several other aliases. All these companies are constantly being bought out by each other and changing name, and it's quite hard to keep track of them. Open Hydro is a French company, and they launched this turbine here that lasted less than a week. The current was so strong that the rotor seized up, and then everything broke. So they then deployed this turbine, and you notice they took out the bit that seized up. That was supposed to be deployed while I was there, and I was ready to go to watch it. Then they pulled it back and changed things, so it was deployed in November instead of August. But the deployment was successful, and they were supplying power to the grid for a few months. They pulled it back in to change the electrics, the data transmission, and that sort of stuff. But the turbine worked fine, apparently. Turbine cost $20 million. So you build an array of 1,000. You're getting pretty high up there. Costs should go down though. Anything else to say about that? Oh yeah. So up in the upper bay where these big companies are operating, they have developed quite a bit of opposition from certain groups, particularly fishermen. And a lot of that is because they've been a bit hush-hush about their operations. Like this company wouldn't disclose the RPM of their turbine until really they were in the papers getting heckled by fishermen. The operation was under threat. And then there's a Facebook group called Fund Tidal Energy, which I thought initially when I joined it would be like good news about tidal power, but it's actually like the rebels posting stuff. So they uploaded all these photos recently of fish they claim to be hit by the turbine. Whether or not they have, can't say. But there was a court case. A lot of like lies going on and the company not disclosing things, but the company won. They released a statement that there was no difference in fish densities when the turbine was in there. Of course, this is one turbine, and so it could be a totally different scenario when you've got 20 or 50 or 100. They're currently analysing the marine sound and the mammal data, and they say that sound readings done in Scotland showed no threat from there. Then they mentioned that climate change poses a bigger threat to fishermen than tidal turbines does. And then the company issued a PR type video showing fish around the turbine. PR video didn't really satisfy the fishermen though, because they showed a different turbine in Scotland that's similar. I've got the video, I'm going to show you it because it also shows the turbine working. Actually, this one will play too. No. We will go. Yeah, so this is from the EMEC test centre, which is the UK test centre. Heavy fish swimming around the turbine. They love it. Yeah, that's right. Well, it's quite convenient because they actually get out of the way when the current starts. Yeah. So, in a nutshell, in Canada, the tidal energy industry is hitting hurdles, but they're progressing. The government is behind the upper bay, but is actually obstructing development in the lower bay. And basically, it's very slow to trudge up the hill. So, while our work here has been really looking forward 50 to 100 years at arrays of hundreds or thousands of turbines, these guys are really trying to get like 2 or 3 turbines in the water. So it's good to visit and pull myself out of numerical modeling land and see what's actually going on. So a quick word on what's happening in New Zealand. The answer is nothing. Cook Strait has a lot of potential, but nobody's interested in developing it. Wellington's right there as well. There's something that could use power. There was a Kuiper Harbour development on the cards about 5 or 10 years ago, maybe now, and that's gone dormant. So that was Shell Todd was backing that one under another alias, another company, and I've heard, never really heard exactly why, but I've heard 2 things. One was that the infrastructure cost was a lot more than they anticipated, and the other thing I've heard is that resource assessment methods really improved around 2005, 2007, and that showed that the power output wasn't as hopeful as they thought it was. So New Zealand's got so many other renewable resources like geothermal and wind. It's established technology. We have the expertise in the country already, and really probably going to be picking that low-hanging fruit initially. I still think New Zealand could use more power, so we could electrify our vehicles. Some very large companies in here are still burning coal for industrial heating. Maybe they should step up and start using a clean fuel source. The other option is maybe we can find a way to export electricity or export something like aluminium, which requires a high electricity input. So my trip to Canada and to California wouldn't be possible without the OERC, so thank you very much. And the Almond Full Scholarship, thank you. Our research is funded by the Marsden Fund, and several people made the trip possible. Margot Gerritsen at Stanford, Richard Carston, Katie, Greg down in the islands, and Justine and Cody let me sleep on their couch while I was there, which greatly reduced costs. Thanks for listening, and I leave you with a quote from a now disgraced Fox News reporter, Bill O'Reilly.
Any questions? Yeah, Malcolm, you talk about tidal streams. Did they ever looked at the Onehunga estimates between the Otago and the Minas Harbour, which is got about a couple of land in between, but you've got a tidal difference of about 4 hours.
Yeah, right. No, I haven't heard anything. I haven't seen anything about that. I mean, there's been a New Zealand focus. It's been Cook Strait, obviously, Kuiper Harbour, and then Fogo Strait as well, which was looked at. I've maybe heard people speculate about the potential to build there, but it's sort of down the list, I think. Yeah. Sure.
Iceland was exporting power to Europe via hydrogen.
Yeah.
Has that gone anywhere?
Well, I thought about that too. I looked at the hydrogen conversion efficiency, and it's really, I think it's quite low. I think it's around 50 to 60% round trip once you've converted into hydrogen and turned it back into electricity. I mean, it's possible, but yeah, I think the low efficiency really turns people off from doing it. If we could build a really long cable to Australia, maybe we could do something about that.
I mean, they're talking about building a cable from Iceland, Greenland to.
Oh, yeah. Maybe we can follow them once they've learned from all the mistakes.
They seem ridiculous right now, but you know.
Yeah, exactly. Desperate times. Yeah.
In the Minas Basin, you had images of 2 turbines. The first one had a sealed inner core, and then they took that out and it appeared to work. Do you know why? What the difference was?
The inner core is the piece that caused all the trouble in the first place. I think it's the piece that locked up and then caused problems all throughout the rest of the turbine. So that's the reason they took it out. Yeah, it seems to work fine. Yeah.
I've got a Canadian policy question.
Yeah.
Canadian policy comment, there's a lot of weird stuff like theory definition in Canada, which I think is relative constitution.
Yeah.
So we join a different narrative with the steering wheel. So, but what was with the Upper Bay and the Lower Bay?
Yeah, well, I think that a lot of that is the government doesn't want to upgrade the grid and they want to protect their own investment, which was a wind turbine that was put in 10 years ago. So they want to make sure their investment pays itself off, which is halting private industry from building it there. But that Minas Passage is such a big resource, and they're getting like money coming in from companies paying to test there as well. So it's really worth keeping that and promoting it. Nice.
What about this potential for technology in Asia? I mean, like Europe.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously with massive population, so.
It's
looking at the global map, I don't know.
Yeah.
Where the
Go back to that maybe. There's definitely some progress being made in Asia. There's nothing massive, but I've seen like several small presentations on like a small bridge in Hong Kong where they've tested a turbine there. There's just not really, there's no massive resource. So there's application for several small scale things.
About Central America, so.
Yeah.
Aren't they building another second version of the canal?
I saw that too when I looked at this map. I saw that and I thought, wow, there's nothing going on there. And I wondered if that, I don't know, maybe it's a lack of like wealth in that area to develop the technology, or maybe the resource is just not as good as this figure suggests.
You've got big populations there again.
Yeah.
Colombia, Venezuela.
Yeah. No, I can't answer that one. I don't know why. There's not much activity going on over there. I saw as well that people were looking at Ghana. A Swedish company was investing or doing resource assessments of an estuary in Ghana.
Right.
So I haven't heard anything more from that.
So not obviously around Madagascar. Is that Madagascar?
Yeah, there's some East Coast of Africa. Yeah.
You mentioned that tidal flow likes to go around tidal arrays.
Yeah.
How's that being approached? Is there
Yeah.
energy stagger them? Or?
Yeah, so basically, if you can block off enough of the channel with turbines, then some of the flow is forced through it. So a lot of the, if you've got a channel and you block the left-hand side, the flow is still going to tend to the right, but more flow is going to be forced through that one. And then people have looked at staggering rows, so one on the left, one on the right. You've got to make sure that you can still navigate the channel in most of these places as well, which causes trouble. And then there's the debate whether you have the turbines floating from the surface or you have them mounted on the ground. They're mounted on the ground and they're out of the way, but they're closer to the sea floor. So they're harder to maintain, and then you also, the flow is actually lower on the sea floor because of the boundary layer from the friction from the ground. Yeah. Then at the surface, you've also got waves, so you've got to weigh these things up. I think that's part of the reason why no one's really decided on it.
So if the flow is wanting to go around, does that cause erosion?
Yeah, it would change the flow patterns, and then you'd probably get coastal erosion taking place on that point. I suspect. I can't really comment because I don't know much about that. People have looked at sediment. They've done sediment modeling, so they put a theoretical array in and looked at how the sediment will change as well, and how that'll move around the day.
Just to continue, you mentioned taking up most of the channel or putting it on the left-hand side or having staggered. Can you do, or has it been tried to do like a Christmas tree shape?
Like funneling it in, kind of. Yeah. All sorts of things have been tried. I've seen funnels as well, and I've seen a simulation where they let the turbines go wherever they want to maximize power. What ends up happening is that the turbines do actually form kind of into funnels. But what these turbines are doing, those turbines themselves are producing no power. They're just forcing flow into the center where there's a wall of turbines waiting for that flow to come through. So yeah, there's the possibility of maybe even putting in barriers to try and funnel this flow into certain areas, things like that.
How are these all fixed in place?
Depends. So that one that was in the Minas Passage, that was just sitting on a mount, and that's just gravity holding it down. And they had an array in the UK where they had a gravity mount, and that turned out to be a nightmare because there was no flat ground where they wanted to build. So they spent ages trying to place this thing. And when they're placing these turbines, they're placing them in high current zones. So they've got a few hours around slack tide where they can operate. Then they've actually got to get out and try again later.
What about the ones that are at the bottom of the floating? They're still attached to the bottom?
The ones that are floating, they're all still ballasted to the ground somehow, like the small ones in the lower bay that were chained to the ground. So they usually are ground connected as well as floating on the surface.
The penny fish PR video. They give the reason why they didn't have their own video.
No, they haven't really commented on that. I thought it was a bit slimy though. Like I watched it and I was thinking, oh, wow, there's no fish around there. And I looked a bit closer and I was like, that is not the same turbine that I just showed on the slide before. Yeah.
But how fast do they go?
That big one in the Minas Passage was like 8 RPM, so 8 revolutions per minute. So quite slow, 12 seconds. Yeah.
So one of the things I think about tidal energy is because it's got that 12.25, 12.5 hour cycle. It doesn't actually, it's not actually timed very well with human kind of patterns to use.
Well, it's timed quite well at a certain time of the month.
Yeah,
Then
it goes out of sync. So
yeah.
Has there been much thought about how it's breaking?
Yeah. Ross, my supervisor, he had a pretty radical concept that you can actually change the phase. You can change the phase of the tide so that you can delay power generation by not generating at certain times. It's quite tricky, but he managed to fit the generation curve to a demand curve for power by blocking like 80% of the channel with turbines and doing some pretty radical things. But yeah. So there's that, and then I guess if you can store it somehow, but I haven't seen anyone specifically try and overcome that barrier.
I guess you're around water, so pump storage becomes.
Yeah.
more viable.
Yeah.
There was a company New Zealand years ago that was trying to resource conserve solar power straight.
Straight, is that Neptune? They just stopped doing it. So they were going to test one turbine in the Cook Strait, and funnily enough, I've never seen Neptune Energy ever appear again. So they either died or they were bought out, or yeah.
How does it compare cost-wise to wind?
So that, I don't know how much a wind turbine costs. I don't know if anyone here.
Well, it's the megawatt hours. Yeah, exactly. It's how much it costs per unit.
Yeah. That Cape Sharp turbine was $20 million and it produced 2 megawatts. I can't do the calculation in my head. But
I guess the operating cost is zero first, isn't it?
yeah, I mean, probably a bit of maintenance. Yeah.
Maintenance is probably higher than wind turbines.
I was going to say,
Salty water and-
yeah, salty water and fouling and things will grow on them, I'm sure.
And it's not mass produced yet, right?
Yeah. Economies of scale.
That sort of factors in the capital cost and the operating cost.
Yeah, it's quite hard to do an economic model for the industry because it's so young. So when we look at economics, I take a really simple approach by looking at the power generated by the turbine versus the force it has to withstand. So more force equals greater cost in power generated. So it's a pretty simplistic view. I've seen other models where they've tried to build economics into it. They have some success, but it's still quite uncertain. Actually putting dollar values on it. You can produce graphs, but the numbers are sort of meaningless at the moment.
Probably where the wind industry was 40 years ago.
That's right, yeah.
They're completely different stages, but
They're often compared.
it's probably 40 years ago. Really.
Yeah. So people have started looking at how wind energy economics have evolved as well and built that into the economics of tides.
Impressive. I'm just good at that.
Yeah. I mean, wind can sort of go a lot more places than tides can as well. So the economy of scale may never be as great. Tides so geographically specific.
So Dunedin Harbour is out of the question.
Yeah, in the foreseeable future. I've always thought if you could build a barrage across the harbour, then you could complete the bike track and generate tidal power, but yeah, I don't think that's going to get resource consent.
Well, there are two engines. So,
Right, yeah.
one is small ships and the other one hasn't.
Yeah. The other option I've always thought as well would be to stop at Quarantine Island and open that up to tourism and the bike path, yeah, hybrids.
Yes, well, I was thinking about power, not so.
Okay, great. So thank you very much, Malcolm.
Yeah.